this one's going to be a sphere. All right, so let's move this where it needs to go. And you should be able to match. You should be able to match the size of the eyeball in the socket to the actual spheric circumference of your controller. So scale this down. Let's go back here. Wireframe. Yeah, it's gonna be tiny. Scale it down. And you can match up, you know, how these lines are fitting on the center of this. That'll be a good indicator of if it's actually a sphere. That's pretty good. Oh, another thing to keep in mind is that joints do not work well if you try to do a mirror for them for some reason. So you're going to want to create both eyes separately, you know, both eyebrow controls separately. It's come into some issues when you try to mirror those over for some reason. I don't know why. It's probably just a bug. But we're going to create one and then create the other. That looks pretty good. It's pretty spot on. Go to your front view. That's what you want to do. Turn on wireframe. And then just make sure that these, if there is an actual segment in there, just make sure that the segments match. You should be good to go. I don't see one up top. Oh, yes. See. It needs to be down a little bit. Oh, it needs to be in the center of that. Is there one that goes off? Oh, there is. What am I doing? All right. I was just doing undo. This mic is, let me move this back a little bit. I think I can, move this a little bit more so that it fits better. Yeah, you can see how it's starting to shift over. So yeah, I can, I see. It's not completely on one line or the other. That looks pretty good though. It's pretty straightforward. Maybe I can move it back a little bit more. No. All right. What you can do is you actually copy your values though. Copying your values over will ensure that both eyes are the exact same size. And you can also do negative versions to, not negative versions, but negative values in order to get it to be in the right position that's symmetrically to the other eye. You just need to create the joint on its own instead of mirroring it. So that's what we'll do. So let's save. Let's create another joint. And again, this one's going to be to the head. And this is going to be eyeball R. The other one's eyeball L. And create. All right, so let's go back to the eyeball R, and what we're going to do is we are going to change these to be a sphere and a sphere. Oh, we also want to make sure that our rotations are the way we want. So this looks like Z should be up and down. So does it show where the pivots are? It does, okay. So we're going to want to rotate this on our y-axis 90 degrees. All right, so now our Z is up. Let's grab that other one. We're going to want to bring this up to here. So now we can use the same values on this. Let's move it over first. Let's make this a negative. Oh, see, it's not. Oh, yeah, that looks like it might be right. All right, so let's just put the other values in right quick. All right, let's see what our scale was. 248. All right, so we're just matching our values right now for our XYZ position and rotation and our global scale to make sure that they are consistent with one another and we don't have any weird, like, you know, one eyeball's rotating crazy and the other one's not. Other thing we want to do is we want to make sure that our rotations, like this was 90, we want to copy that one over too. That was on our y-axis. So let's copy that over. All right, so now when we grab both of these, they should rotate the exact same way. Save your file before we start messing around with stuff. Turn on that again. Let's go to rotation. You see they both roll up, they both roll down, they both roll over, they both roll over. Perfect. All right, so there's our eyes. So now we have our eyes. We want to duplicate exactly where those are and probably we can change so for the eyelids, what you want to do is you want to duplicate where the locations are for that size and everything. It's literally making a duplication right on top of that eye. But what we're going to do is we're going to offset it on the z-axis to be rotated up a little bit or down a little bit to represent the eyelids, the upper eyelid and the lower eyelid. So that's what we're going to do right now. I'm just making sure, I'm thinking right now just to make sure how I want to set it up so that it works the best. I mean, if you look at how many edge loops are in here for the eye, that's what these are right here considered. Say there's only really 3 or 2 that you're going to want to mess with, which is, this is probably as far down as you want to go with blending up. You know, we're not reptiles, so our bottom lid doesn't go up as much. Like with reptiles, it's kind of half and half. Some creatures, the bottom eyelid is what closes. more of the, I think the aquatic characters, they have like some other membrane. It's not actually them blinking, it's a membrane that's going over their eye. So we want to make sure that we have our rotations correct, and how we do our offset. Let's look at the top eyelid a little bit. So it looks like we're only going to be able to get, there's this row and maybe the row above it, which is this row right here. And this is the one thing, I mean, so we got to see how this looks, because usually when the eyes are a little darkened around the eye socket, two things can happen. You can blend it as best as you can, but because there's texturing on those, which is like not really uniform, it looks gonna look like you have like a black eye when you blink, because the lid is gonna be darker right here, and it may not look correct. The only thing you can do as a rigger is work around that limitation and make it where it's not as obvious that there's like these stretchy black marks, because it's just stretching the mesh and stretching the UVs and stretching the texture pretty much. So yeah, so let's create that. So we're gonna make some more joints. We're gonna do them one at a time so we don't get confused and nothing's crazy. We're gonna start with making another joint that's gonna go to the head. Save your file. Let's do another version just for shits and giggles. So, you know, we are saving ourselves, covering our butts. So save as. Let's do, this is going to be version 8. All right, so what we're going to do with this is click joint again. This is going to be to the head as well. And we're going to call this eyelid L. L upper. Yeah. That'll group them together. So naming is important, because once you get your naming convention down, you know, things will be grouped together. Like how you can see in this box, neck 1 and neck 2 are together. So eyelid L upper and eyelid L lower will be next to each other. And same thing for the right versions. The R will be what separates it out, where they're both next to each other, as opposed to it being stacked all weird. All right, let's click create. Let's bring this up to here. All right, so to make sure we don't get lost, I do want to keep these separate looking. So like for the proxy shape, let's do the control type. We want that to be, what does the arrow look like? Oops, wrong one. See, there you go. We want that to be sphere, and we want to close that because that's not the one we're on. We're on this one. And we want this to be, what does arrow look like? No, we do not want that. Nope. I think we're going to use triangle again. I think we're going to use triangle again. And we don't want this to be a sphere. I think cube is the, is there a cone? Oh man, that's not going to, let's leave it a cube. All right, so let's get everything to be the same as this one. So we're just going to copy everything over. Let's go back to our wireframe so we can see everything. And then our mesh, I don't know if I added it to that or not. What you can do is you can create a channel down here and put your mesh on it. So we should be able to